And welcome into Getting Help from Uncle Sam, except it seems like we're not getting a whole lot of help from Uncle Sam. Every time you turn around, there's something happening in our country. I turned 80 recently, and people that talk to me say, I do not believe that I am in the United States in this day and age. Something needs to be changed. It's not rocket science. It's simple things, but you have to have good representatives. Congressman Barry Moore is here today, 2nd Congressional District. Glad to have you back. Glad to have you back home for a few days.
Thank you, Jackie.
It's always
good
nice to
be
do
home.
that.
It's always good to see the folks from the 2nd Congressional District and from the great state of Alabama.
So when we've got problems like, okay, they talk about inflation. I've got one answer for that real quick. It's called oil. People do not understand. Oil is not just what you put in a car. It's this big, oil is this big for what it does to everything.
It drives the entire economic engine. All
Absolutely.
the transportation costs that bring your groceries to the store, any materials you order, everything is shipped by truck or rail. And at the end of the day, the fuel costs drive up the cost of everything you buy and sell as consumers.
Absolutely. Plus the fact products are made with oil.
Absolutely. So it's just another input cost that drives things up.
Absolutely. So that's just one example of things that are happening. That could be changed pretty quick. But you have to have somebody that can take action. If the Republicans flip the House and flip the Senate, how quickly can things change? Because I know pretty quickly they started going south with the new administration.
They did, Jack. Joe Biden's energy policy was this day one. He stopped the Keystone Pipeline. And then he gave Russia a green light on Nord Stream 2, which came back to bite us in Ukraine. And then he begs OPEC to increase production. We just found out recently he was trying to get them to increase production till after the election, and then we buy our solar panels from China. Those are the sort of things. The energy policy is not America First energy policy, but it's more about just, I think, an agenda that's hurting the American consumer. We tell everybody this is basically the 2G election, gas and groceries. The American families right now between fuel costs and groceries. And again, if you look at even the input costs for farmers, I mean, I had dinner with a farmer last night. His fuel costs, he spent more in April than he spent all of last year just getting crops out of the ground and so you think about what that does to the farmer's bottom line, and then of course petroleum impacts your fertilizer costs. So all of these things are starting to culminate. So we're going to see a continued, I think, just an inflation bell curve that just kind of goes up and up and up until we change energy policies.
Okay. So people realize that obviously the election is on November 8th, and on November 9th they don't just jump into the seat and go. Because I remember December of 2020, after you had been elected, you were kind enough to do a farewell to Alabama, kind of a farewell, because you were ready to go to Washington, but you weren't sworn in until
January 3rd.
January 3rd.
That's
so that's when you could actually start doing some work.
Right, January. Our concern right now, my biggest concern is the Democrats passed a continuing resolution to get just past the November election. So when we go back up there, then there's a problem there because they're not accountable to the voters, and what they do between now and January 3rd could be more detrimental to our country than what we've already done. But yeah, I mean, if you look at inflation and fuel prices, Ukraine, Afghanistan, vaccine mandates, there's so many things right now that the American people are concerned about, and crime, of course, is at the top of the list.
Oh my God, yes, it's unbelievable.
Yes.
It's unbelievable that we're living in. It's almost becoming like a third world country.
It's concerning. I mean, and I think the American people are waking up. I think that's why the polling numbers we're seeing, and it's just, I mean, you're sending so many illegals and so many drugs to these communities, and then if you talk about defunding the police in those communities, crime is bound to follow, and it is following, and it's already here. And so, there's some concerns, I think, for crime, and that impacts every American family, regardless if you're a Republican, Democrat, whatever the case. You want to feel safe and secure in your own home. You want your communities to be safe. You want your schools to be safe. And so there are some opportunities for us. But I must say this, we've got to do something with those opportunities. If the people trust us, we better deliver, and I expect us to.
Okay, prioritizing, number one, going forward would be what?
Safety. Just making sure people feel safe at home. Then affordability. Can the American people afford to put groceries on their table? Can they afford the vehicles and the gas to get to work? And then I think fairness. You've got to make sure that your daughters are not having to compete against your sons in sports. There's opportunities there. And of course, I think education. We have to make sure that our kids go to school and learn about just reading, writing, and arithmetic. We need to educate our children and make sure that they know this is a great nation. It is not perfect. We all understand that. But we need to make sure, and I think too that parents have input in that education. You know, that we're not teaching CRT. We're not allowing parents to be considered targets when they go to the school boards and have questions about the curriculum. Why would the FBI have them on some sort of terrorist watch list?
And we need
Those
to
are the kind of things
we need to get to the point where the U.S. Department of Education steps aside. It has to happen locally.
Yes, and we've got to make sure that not so much money is tied to DC that
Right,
local communities
right.
can like to educate
Get
their
the stuff
children.
they need.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much, and you'll be going back to Washington. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Jack.
As
Keep
I've
us in your
mentioned
prayers.
in the past, I will. This is a representative that truly represents the people. Whenever I need him, he's right there. And he has offices a new office in Troy, Andalusia, Dothan, and of course, Wetumpka, Alabama.
That's right.
Where we're sitting here today for this interview. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
all
Jack.
you do.
God bless y'all.
God bless
Thank
you,
sir.
and we'll be right back right after this.